record this. Please remind me of recording too. So here we are explaining the part line, or the division of these two bodies. That what I'm going to do is split it with this surface. So I have a solid body, which is this drone body fuselage here, and then I have this one single surface plane or surface body. Okay, so next I'm going to try, so I tried the cut with surface, but cut with surface will just, it has to delete one side or the other. So next I'm going to try the split tool. And what that'll do is it will get whatever you select. So I'm going to select this surface body. And when I click on cut bodies, it's going to just, you see the little scissors there, it's going to trim both of those right at that piece. So now, because I clicked on cut bodies and this intersects this body and it creates two results out of it, I get these two pieces that I have to check off to select that, so that it becomes two separate bodies. And there is no merge back into it. I just want to make sure. Sometimes I think on the other one, there is another one. I think on intersect, there is a way to kind of merge everything back, but that defeats the purpose of splitting them. So again, this is the split tool. You need a surface to do the splitting here. And then I have the two resulting bodies, right? So I'm going to just auto assign names. Let's see. Well, I guess this hasn't been seen yet. I'll just click on the OK. So there we go. So I still have my surface body. And then there's the top split and the bottom split. So if I hide the surface, there we go. So that's so now that surface basically cut this piece into two, and now I have two solid bodies. I'm going to hide that one. Just look at the top there. There we go. It's called the shell's in place there. Let's look at the other one. There we go. So that's that piece. It kind of looks like a little boat, right? So shell's on the place. And that's it. So that's that piece there. And let's see, I'm going to select both of them. So that's the second way to kind of cut these with, with that surface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to suppress that split tool. So let's do another way. Let's do it another way. Now I'm going to use the intersect tool. So if I go to features, intersect. And intersect's pretty versatile because intersect can work with not only surfaces, but it'll work with other solid bodies and also planes. So it'll, you can do an intersect with planes. And if you remember back a few weeks ago, we did that. I think it was one of our last projects we did in class, the bottle that we did on, the measuring of the volume. So that was the intersect tool. All right, so I'm going to select both bodies, and if I just for fun, I'm going to select let's see, the right plane. So here I have a surface body, a solid body, and a plane, just the right plane of this piece. So it's going to create both internal and external regions. So let's just say, I'll just create both. Let's see what happens. Okay, so out of all the combination of all of those bodies, it came up with 6 different regions. So it looks like there were 2 additional regions on the inside, kind of creating because this right plane kind of creates an internal sort of cap to that empty space on the inside. And it's split by that surface. that's why I have these extra pieces on the inside that are kind of these volumes. But you can see the right plane is also cutting this into two here as well. So just to kind of illustrate that you can use a plane as well. So I'm going to take that one off. Click on intersect again. And this one you don't check. So by checking it here, it's saying that you want to delete that. So I do not want to delete it. So basically the same result, just using a different tool. In this case, this is one of those tools that says, it does say merge result at the end. So you'll want to click that off so that it doesn't, you know, merge these back together, because that's, you know, we're trying to split these. It'll you know, we don't want it to kind of do the same thing. And I click OK. And I'm going to hide the surface. Extrude, and there you go. So same result, different tool, more options with the intersect tool, because you're able to, you know, you're able to get some you know, some planes to work with it as well. So not only surfaces, but also solid bodies and planes with that. Okay. All right, so now what can we do with this? So I don't think I'll get into, maybe we'll have time and we'll get into the faceting features. We can do the lip and the groove. So I think we've all seen lip and grooves, right? With molded pieces. You know, when two things clip together, we have like a little wall that extends up inside of, you know, the piece that's coming up and over it, right? We've all seen those, I think, and break it just about any plastic piece, and you'll see kind of this, a wall on one side and a groove on the other, so that they intersect that way. There's also snaps and hook grooves. There's just a snap hook in this case. And then occasionally there's also mounting bosses. So that's another faceting. So maybe there's a screw that goes underneath here, and there's a mounting boss that goes way from the top all the way to the bottom here. You know, maybe that's how the circuit board is mounted. Other things. So it's fun to always just breaking stuff apart, right? Just to see how, you know, how do they put this together? So definitely a lot of engineering that goes on the inside of one of these pieces. So I think I'll probably leave that maybe for when we're a little bit further along in our drone design. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is save this. And I'm not just going to save it, because the good thing about this is your master part. This is, you know, the initial design. This is the initial surfaces, how you wanted this to look, all the walls in the right position, the place, and, you know, all the direct editing that went into the back here, all of that stuff. But now, when it comes down to saving both of these bodies, because here we have two bodies, when it comes down to saving these bodies, now they become, you know, their own parts that can be put in an assembly. They can have their own SKU numbers, you know, their own basically inventory numbers or part numbers that go to, you know, the internal company's catalog, right? For molds and all that stuff, and they can keep track of the billing and all that stuff. But it all starts with, you know, with this model. So at this point, you can go in and start naming these bodies. So let's say, I'm going to call this drone, oops, bottom part. We'll call this drone top. So those are the names of the bodies. And then this is where I'll go and I'll say insert feature and say save bodies. So I do want to say, so this is one of the ones that you do have to check. Oh, I do have to save this whole thing first. I'm going to save this part body here. Okay, so this one is solid bodies. Okay, now that this part is saved, now I'm going to go in and go back to features and say save bodies, because my goal here is to save the two bodies into their own separate files. So if I click on both of those, it's saying I want to save both of these bodies out as their own, as their own parts. And notice that the preview, if I look here, you can see the preview, drone bottom part, SLD PRT. So that it's really going to get its own file. Now, I'm just not just saving this whole part as one file. I'm going to be saving out these as their own separate part files. And at the same time, and I'm going to click on consume cut bodies, and I'll show you why in a second. But at the same time, I want to create my assembly for this. So I'm going to click on browse under create assembly. I'm going to click on browse. And so this will be the drone body assembly. So that's the safe location for it. All right, so I think we're okay with everything. I'm going to click OK. So it takes a little while because it's saving out all those part files. It's making them. I'll just click yes on this template for every part it'll ask you. So it's saving out, making new files for those parts, and also making a new assembly file. Click rebuild. All right, so now save bodies is there, and it looks like my part just completely disappeared. And it really, well, it did because it consumed it because of the save bodies. They basically, they went out into their own, as their own parts, and the part got, they got consumed from this original part. I mean, it's still there. If I roll back, it's still there, but after the save bodies, they just kind of went off, those two halves kind of went off into their own parts, and their new files got created. And here are the two files. The good thing is that SolidWorks will open up those files. So here are the two part files, and it also makes, not only did it make the assembly file, but it also opened it up for you. So let's check out that assembly file. And I'll hit yes on this. So there it is. So also notice that, so this is the name that I gave it, drone body assembly. And here are my two parts. So these two I do not have to mate because they're already, they were created in the place that they're supposed to be in, right? So I don't need to, mate it. They are both fixed. So if you do choose to make them float and maybe remate them, you can, but you don't have to. That's not something that you actually have to, because they're already in place. What you can do though is you can set an exploded view. So if you click on one and then click on the other piece, well, let's see. I think it's selected both. So that's the first step. And maybe you want it to go a different direction or something. Let's see. So it's in an exploded state. So I'm going to hit collapse on that. So if you ever want to go back and, once you set it to explode, and here's exploded view, really easy to explode. You just select those parts and just move them or rotate them in the direction you want. Okay, so if you ever want to go back and collapse everything, obviously exploded view is just temporary. You can just click on collapse. So if it's exploded, so here it's exploded, and then you right click and you say collapse. So you just have to open up those go to the configurations tab, which you already know about. And sometimes you just have to open those little triangles here. So you can set it to explode. So if it's already exploded, you set it to collapse. Okay. So that's a way to save out the bodies. And now we can go in and, you know, save them out as parts, bring them into an assembly, and then do all the other stuff that's, you know, available to the assembly, right? You can set it as exploded view. We can bring in other parts. You know, maybe some of the parts are standard, you know, from McMaster car, bring in some of those pieces, and then, you know, and then just go to town on making the other parts. And then I'll show you, I think, next week on how to build a new part referencing an existing assembly. That's pretty cool. So, but right now for this, if I look at my 2 parts here, the good thing about this, doing it this way, because they're both together, is that, you know, the original part, you know, it's still tied in with this. You know, this, you know, SolidWorks is great because, you know, everything is sort of interconnected, not just feature-wise, but also doing it this way with all these inner parts. You know, these, you have your master part, and then that master part got broken into two of its own separate parts, and then those 2 parts got inserted into an assembly, which we're looking at now. So all of those are still interconnected. You know, we haven't broken those links. Remember that whenever you see this little arrow here, this little directional, that means it has a link somewhere. You can see this little arrow. It looks like a little arrow, but it's just really a dash with a kind of a bracket. Remember that they always have like some kind of a link to them still. You can see the little arrow link here and here. Well, that's another thing too. When you do save out these parts, notice that we don't see a feature tree in how they were created. You know, because if I look back at the original part, you know, this, let's see, no, that's not it. That's the one here. So this is my original part, and this is the one that has all of the features that created that part. And at the very bottom, it's the save bodies. That's sort of like the, I know you think about this, you know, the Star Trek, was it transporter beams, you know, when beam me up, Scotty, kind of thing, right? I mean, those things got, those parts, those bodies got beamed over to these other new parts. And if you want them to change, if you want to make any kind of edits, you do have to roll back at least once. And let's say, you know, maybe you need more room in the back for a battery compartment or something. You can still edit something, and it looks like this line is tied in with this piece here. So, you know, it follows it, and it looks like the split line is fine. You know, that I'm not getting any kind of breaks. So we extended it, I don't know, let's say 2/10 of an inch or so. So now this has an extension. Now I'm going to roll forward again. And the only thing is that you do have to go into solid save bodies again. You know, you have to edit this and just click the check mark, you know, the checkbox here. So it is updating those parts. And this might be kind of a subtle thing, but it's, you know, this got extended now. And I probably should have shown before and after, maybe, or made a more drastic change maybe, but just know that those parts got updated and this was extended slightly. So not only the parts, but also the assembly. Okay, so now we hit yes because the parts have changed. And now this gets the new extended version of that part. Okay. So I'm going to go and look at the top part. Oh, so again, you know, this part was born, this particular part was born from that save bodies. So that's why there is no feature tree to this part. You know, there's no move bodies, there's no sweep, none of that stuff, because really this part was kind of born or beamed over here right when we did the save bodies. and that's why all you see is this stock drone demo solid bodies 1, and that's, you know, it came from that save bodies. Okay, so but the cool thing is that you can still add features after this. So anything that you add after this, like let's say any kind of maybe some structural ribs here, or possibly maybe the mounting post or something, any other cuts possibly, maybe a logo, maybe a hole here for an antenna, maybe the slots for the landing gear, for the, you know, for the drone propellers, all that stuff. So you can add all of those features after the fact, but they don't go backwards. You know what I mean? So if I go to the front here, and I'm going to the front, and let's say this is going to be my maybe like a rotating, maybe I have a kind of a rotating propeller element or something, right? So this is going to be the slot for that piece. Okay, so this is going to be a cut. So I'll just make that mid-plane. Oops, there we go. Okay, so there's that cut. And you notice that that comes after this, you know, the save bodies. And anything else that you do, maybe the, you know, the mounting, let's just insert like a quick, I think I can do this on the side here. It's not parallel, but, you know, this is just an example. Well, let's just say I add that to that, right? Maybe that's just a quick, simple mounting boss that goes on the top. So that's another feature. But if I look at the original part, so I'm gonna hit save, and I look at the assembly. If I look at the assembly, I say yes on that. So the assembly part, you can see that it has those changes. It has the mounting boss up here. I can look at the part here, and you can see that it has the cut extrude and the mounting boss feature there. But if I go backwards, you know, there's nothing that's reflected on that. You know, there's, if I go back 1, it still looks like the original one, because those, you know, those features, those part modifications came after the same body, the save body in those parts. All right, so you kind of have to look at it as a kind of a sequence of events. So this part got created, it got beamed into their own parts, and then after those parts got created, then other features were inserted after the fact. All right. And another thing too, notice that I also clicked on, you know, this has disappeared, and I do that on purpose, because a lot of times what will happen is that, you know, people will be tempted to create other features at this stage, you know, like when they're still in the parts body, but after the save bodies. So like in this case, I clicked on consume cut bodies. So these parts got, you know, separated and cut and saved into their own parts. But I also clicked on consume cut bodies, and what happens is that, you know, they get consumed by those division of parts and the saving out of the parts. If I don't click on that and just hit OK, okay, it's updating those bodies. It's this model sticks around, it stays, and sometimes you're kind of tempted to create, you know, these other features here at this stage. But what will happen? Let's say I go to the top here, and I want to create some kind of an antenna hole for an antenna or something. Let's just say, okay, so I'm going to go to sketch, and I'll just do a straight slot from the top. Maybe it's towards the back here. Maybe that's the hole for the antenna. And click on that. All right, so that's the hole for the antenna. So this feature came after the save bodies, right? So at this stage, at the save body stage, you know, those parts were already saved out. It's not reading anything that came after it. So if I go in and make this hole, and then I go back here and say, you know, I'm gonna look at this top part and saying, okay, where's that antenna hole? It's not there. You know, I did it in the original part. Why wouldn't it be here? Well, it's because of that. You know, it's because that, you know, this was born, so to speak, at that save body stage and got sent out to its own part. Anything that goes after that in the original part, you know, this doesn't see, you know, because it comes after, it came after the save bodies. Hope that's clear to everybody. You know, just check the sequence. That's why, but that's why I click on the consume bodies, because it makes it disappear and you're not tempted to make other changes and things. You know, if you want to create another version maybe that has all these holes and other, you're gonna have to do another save bodies for that to, you know, but then that'll be a separate part and all that. So, so just think about what you'll, you know, what changes you'll make, what, you know, what alterations you'll make. You know, if you do want to make this hole, just make sure that it happens before the save body. So in this case, I'll just roll this up above save bodies. Hopefully it doesn't crash. I'll wait for it to finish. There we go. So it looks like it didn't crash. So, okay, so now I rolled up that cut extrude above the save bodies. And remember, any changes that you make, you'll just have to go in here. I'm going to click on consume and just hit the checkbox so it updates the other parts. Ah, okay. Now I get the crash. Restart it to see if it opens up again. So yeah, so I think all that interconnectivity kind of brought it to its knees. Any questions? And everybody's all quietly listening. Hopefully everybody's at their desk looking, watching. That's the only thing about these online classes. I'm just looking at a bunch of names, little empty boxes.
You're gonna do the fascinating features, right? Some other day.
The faceting features? Yes, I will. I'll do it. Maybe next week. Maybe I'll do it next week. Usually it's kind of towards the end because there are sort of finishing, what I consider kind of like a finishing feature, but definitely will.
So
yeah,
they will easily apply to anything. Like you're saying, it's an end feature. I would think you would need to do it earlier.
Well, it's one of those things where at the design stage, it's not, you know, I don't like to get caught up with a lot of those intricacies early on because of, you know, they do take time. They do take longer time to update and to modify if you do need to make some, you know, sometimes drastic changes. So I kind of keep them towards the end usually. You know, if it's a straightforward feature, yeah, go ahead and put it in earlier. But like that other piece, you know, open all of these.
And you said you wanted us to base it off of what type of drone?
Oh, the Mavic. The Mavic. If I look at the Mavic, let's see. If you go to the DJI, I think it's DJI. It's probably .com. I think it's DJI.com. There we go. So consumer. I'll go to the consumer. So these. I'll just click on the Mavic too. So they're very, they're directional drones, you know, meaning that they're not, it's not a symmetrical or, you know, like those quad drones are based on fours. It's more of a, this looks more like a little airplane, you know, so it's got like a fuselage and, you know, cameras and all that stuff below it. But We can base it on, and you have the option. I mean, if you do want to base it off something that is more like like a quad type of drone, like their other one. I think they have one called what is it? The Phantom series. So the Phantom Pro. So that one is based on fours. It's not like a directional fuselage. This is more like just a four corner piece here. So a little bit different. So you can do one like this if you want. That'd be fine. But I want you to get used to, creating a design first, either with solids or with surfaces, creating a solid, breaking it up into bodies, and then into an assembly so that you can place all these other things together as well, like the propellers and a lot of the stuff you just get online as well. Other people have, gone onto GrabCAD and just got like a propeller from there, or like a little electrical motor, like like what's inside of here. And I can show past projects as well, so you can see them and review them.
I was more curious if it was an inexpensive drone that we could buy and rip it apart and then design our own and put it back together, but that doesn't look cheap. So
no, they're like about $1,000 at least. Yeah, I think they do have one called a Spark, but that one's like $400. But there are videos. Let's see, where is this? They have a great video. Is the way they went into in designing the Mavic, I think in this case. This is a Spark. This is a little tiny one. So you can base it off of this. This is their cheapest one, but that's still like $400 or something. If you want, I mean, if you're into drones, if you do want to buy like a simple one on Amazon, maybe like a little $20 one, and then maybe put your own shell over it, maybe reverse engineer that one. That'd be great. That'd be a great little project as well. That way, when we have access to the 3D printers, or maybe you already have your own 3D printer.
Yeah, I already got one. I think I have a drone here somewhere. So it doesn't. If I do it that way, I don't have to make it like the one you want. I can just make it so it'll work with those parts.
That would be great. That'd be even better. I think just go for it. Yes, I would say reverse engineer those parts. Just so those parts can be included into your final assembly.
Yeah,
that'd be great. So there's that part. There's there's the assembly. So it did look like when I rolled back on that piece, on this piece, it was able to update it. I think the crash happened after it updated that piece. So that worked, fortunately. So there you go. So that's a way to work with bodies, with bodies, multi-bodies, and start with a master body and then go in and save those out so that become their own parts that you can then do other things to with, like whether they be cuts or other the faceting features that we're going to be working with. And if you do go on GrabCAD's, let's see if we're going to, GrabCAD's probably one of the better ones for CAD. So I'll just do a search for drone. Like sometimes the base body of some of these are already, so you can see how they're how they did it, in a way. Some of these are, you look at what file they're in. Some of these are in SolidWorks. Here's a SolidWorks one. Oops. Some are CATIA. Oh, here's a three propeller one, which I don't think work as well. I think quad, hex, or octagon type of drones work the best. So here are some that were, I think, based on the Mavic, like this one here. But even if I just get the propellers from here or something, some standard stuff, I mean, obviously don't get the whole thing, but just, you can if you just want to see how something's built, maybe. But like here's there, here, this would be like a motor, like a brushless motor that you can use for your drone. So that's fine. There's some propellers in here. Oh, the Oblivion drone. That's cool. Love that. Have you guys seen that movie? Oblivion? It's good science fiction. All right, so that's a bit of a preview of what we'll be working on as far as the, kind of a final project. So start thinking about it. Start thinking of while you're taking the test, we were practicing for the test. Maybe you're inspired by a little flying object, or maybe you have a favorite plane or something you want to base it off of. It can be directional like this, or it can be based on, 4 or 6 propeller type of drones that are not so directional, but they are, kind of have some kind of a quad shape or something, quadrant, I should say. So maybe you just have to work on 1/4 of it, and then you mirror it in one sense, and then you mirror it again. So actually in that case, depending on how the arrangement is, you can even work on 1/8 of it. So maybe I'll do that demo next week, because I've done those before as well. So you work on 1/8 of the piece, and then mirror that one, and then mirror it in fourths. So it's kind of a cool way to work too. So we'll kind of take a look at that, and then kind of go over the same process a couple of times. Okay, so let's meet up again on Wednesday, and we'll kind of do a final run through as far as the PDFs, making sure everybody has all the PDFs necessary for their CSWP, and then you'll send me an email requesting a code, and we'll go from there. Then I'll start passing out the codes for the CSWP. Okay. Any questions? And I'll make a product brief out of this one, just so that we know what to do for the drone, but that'll be, in the next week or so. All right. So any questions?
I was curious if my SolidWorks file worked, the one I uploaded.
Let's see. I have to look for it here. Okay. Now, which one? This one is for the sheet metal?
Yeah, the sheet metal. I think it was sheet metal. It was the sheet shields that you asked for.
Yeah. So yeah, that's right.
I think you put it in sheet metal, which was kind of weird.
Let me stop